We're going to roll right ahead with the next part of our program. I'm Pete Zielinski. I'm editor-in-chief of Modern Machine Shop. And it is my privilege now to moderate a panel discussion among our 2018 Top Shops Honors Program winners. So these are 4 different shops that have each distinguished themselves in one of the areas that we evaluate. The 4 areas are machining technology, shop floor practices, business strategy, and human resources. The 4 shops this year that are our honorees are Baker Industries of Macomb, Michigan, Hastrider Industries of Marshfield, Wisconsin, Hirsch Precision of Boulder, Colorado, and Ripley Machine and Tool of Ripley, New York. There's a representative here from each of these 4 shops, and I'd like to invite these guys to come to the stage now. So how this will work, very simple format. We're going to get these guys talking. We're going to ask them some questions. Any question on anyone's mind. I am equipped with, I'm going to get it up so I can show you. So I have plenty of questions myself, and my plea to you, my request, don't let me talk. This part of the program is going to go better. This time is going to be better spent if we can have a more spontaneous discussion that speaks to issues you would like to bring out. Broad issues or narrow issues affecting your shop, affecting machining businesses, anything you'd like to discuss. We have microphones near the stage. It's accessible enough. Feel free to just walk right up. So start stewing on that a little bit. Questions you'd like to ask, be bold. First, I'm going to ask these guys to introduce themselves, introduce their shops. The winner in our machining technology category is Baker Industries. Jerry Kablak is program engineer with Baker.
Hello, I'm Jerry Kablak, Program Engineer and Additive Manufacturing Consultant for Baker Industries. I've been in the industry for almost 30 years. Started out in the trade as a wood model maker in the late 80s. A lot has changed since then, including my haircut. My background now spans across the automotive, aerospace, defense, medical, and energy fields. I began working at Baker in 2014 and have since focused on integrating additive manufacturing and traditional tooling. Baker Industries started as a 3-man shop in 1992. At the time, with only 3 used machines and a little over 2,000 square feet. The upper left corner, you can see a picture of one of our owners, Scott Baker, working hard in the early days on one of the machines that they had. Today we have 4 facilities totaling over 220,000 square feet, and we have over 280 employees. Our core business includes everything from design, fabrication, machining, assembly, build, 3D printing, quality assurance, and CMM certification. We have an impressive variety of CNC machines and other equipment, including 5-axis welder jet, 7 3D printers, welders, CMMs, laser trackers. Most of the tooling that we provide are assembly and bond tools, layup fixtures, scaffolding, containments, check fixtures and gauges, and ground support equipment. We also additive manufacturing is unique because we actually do a lot with integrating the manufacturing technologies to achieve complex designs and shorter lead times, provide improved ergonomics and overall cost savings. Our 3D lab has 5 FDM printers, 2 DMLS metal printers. Both have a large variety of available materials that are made for industrial applications. Our team works really hard with the customers to educate and evaluate their products to see on what projects they have would be ideal candidates for 3D printing. If anyone's interested in learning more about the hybrid tooling and our 3D case studies, feel free to drop by our exhibit booth in the Additive Manufacturing Pavilion. Earlier this year, our Mech-Off power mill became operational. It's our largest CNC machine, and it's also one of the largest machining centers in the Midwest. The only one of its kind in the U.S. The pictures that you see here don't really do it justice. So to give you a little bit of a visual, you can actually put two semi-truck trailers on that table. I could go back here.
Thank you, Jerry. Indeed. The winner in our shop floor practices category is Hirsch Precision. Peter Doyle is Chief Operating Officer. And I should say, I encouraged all these guys to just present the way they want to present. Peter's already sprung to his feet. He's rehearsed this standing, so take it away, Peter.
Exactly right. If I was sitting, I'd probably just forget everything I was going to say. So, my name is Peter. It's an honor to be with you today. Boy, if McCormick Place and IMTS isn't just a monument to the strength of our industry and human creativity flourishing, I don't know what could be. Hey, I'm going to give a brief introduction to our company, and then sort of aligning with what Steve Klein was talking about earlier, share just a couple of ideas to get the conversation started. So next slide, please. So let's see, I got a clicker here. So Hirsch Precision began in 1979 when Steve traded this beautiful green Fiat for a Bridgeport mill because he thought starting a machine shop would give him more freedom and time off. Really. Now, our shop's doing well, but I don't know that we've met Steve's goal. Soon after, Steve's brother Mike, our president and CEO, who I encourage you to meet here today, joined the team, and by the mid-'80s, we had a pretty good-looking bunch. We continued to grow. Here's a more recent photo of when we earned our ISO certification. And just kind of by the numbers today, we're almost 40 years old. We have about 75 employees. We work out of 24,000 square feet. We are cross-industry, but a little over half of what we do is medical. 80% of what we make would fit in the palm of your hand. We do some Swiss, we do 3, 4, and 5-axis milling. We have a multi-pallet system. We do some non-CNC value-added processes as well as part of contracts that we have. So that's a little bit of the history in Hirsch by the numbers, but I wanted to just share 2 ideas to get the conversation started. So we have benefited from Top Shops for many years. Certainly we're not perfect, we don't have all this figured out, and I know I'm going to continue to learn from you guys today and from the other Top Shops. But these are things that I thought were really important for us. And the first is to build your team's passion, not a police force. Build your team's passion, not a police force. We have a machinist named Jim. He's a veteran, fantastic guy. I think he's been clocked at about 20 miles an hour walking through our shop. He's tough to keep up with. And we challenged him a few months back with some more difficult setups. He struggled. After multiple machine crashes in a short amount of time, his management team had a choice. We could take disciplinary action, punish him, provide more supervisor oversight and monitor his every move, or we could give him the ball again and say, take another shot and let him be the chief architect for the fix. We sat down with him and we said, what happened? With tears in his eyes, his voice wavering, he said, I don't know, but I know I've got to fix it. Well, fast forward a few months, we ended up taking that second approach I mentioned, asking him to take the lead in coming up with a fix. And not only did he fix the problem, but most recently, I found him during something like a 4-minute cycle time at his workbench, studying a GD&T textbook as part of a course that he himself had found and enrolled himself in and wanted to improve his knowledge. There's no amount of monitoring that would have done that would have brought out that level of commitment. And so I encourage you to develop your team's passion rather than emphasize kind of a big brother approach. And just to be clear, I'm recommending you find someone like Jim. Please do not hire Jim. The second theme that I would suggest has really been beneficial for us is our investments in structure and systems. Structure supports clarity, accountability, and progress. Ultimately, we had a lot of great ideas, and we didn't want to fail to follow through. And our investments in structure have been significant. We have an ERP system. We have proprietary shop floor management software that we've designed and built. We have project management tools. We have a regular cadence of meetings at various levels of leadership. We have production scorecards for each cell that identify priorities. We have career conversations, training guides, and these have really been helpful. I think if I was to, in humility, share one thing that I think has been good for us, it's taking this approach, that with this culture and with the right people and with these investments in structure, we've seen a nice increase in our ability to identify a goal and then follow through. What I've mentioned is certainly not everything that's on our minds. I just threw up a couple of other ideas today. Like I said, some of you may be familiar with the idea that as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another, and I feel the same way about Top Shops. If there's ideas like this or any other that you'd like to talk about, I look forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. The winner in our business strategies category is Ripley Machine and Tool. Andy Reinwald is the shop's president.
I'm going to stay seated because I'm already calling up stage. I'm Andy Reinwald. I'm the president and owner of Ripley Machine and Tool. Our company was started in the 1950s, originally as Born & Company. In 1994, my grandfather bought the company, and that's when we became Ripley Machine and Tool. I took over for him in 2015. We are located in Western New York, about a mile from Lake Erie, just off of I-90, 20 miles east of Erie, Pennsylvania. We're an ISO certified shop. We have 18 employees. We kind of have two main divisions. The first of which is our CNC turning division. That division, we kind of focus on 1-inch diameter up to 10-inch diameters, quantities ranging from about 50 pieces to up through 10,000 pieces. We also have milling equipment that we can support our lathes with. Our second division is our grinding division. We have centerless grinding and internal grinding. The centerless, we do in-feed and through-feed from as small as 60 thou up through 3-inch diameter and pieces as long as 6 inches. We also have bar grinding capability up to 1 inch. Yeah, I didn't press it. We also do internal grinding and center grinding. The slideshow wasn't the one I gave. Okay. That's why I was confused. Okay. So I'm honored to be up here with these guys, and I guess I'll pass it on.
Thank you very much, Andy. Those weren't exactly the slides that he had prepared, and we had a little mix-up there, so he gracefully dealt with that. The winner in our human resources category is Hastreiter Industries. Kylan Hastreiter is Vice President of Marketing.
Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here with you all. I think this is a great opportunity for all of us to come together and really explore what makes our industry great. What can we do to work together to explore that with the data that we've been able to have from Modern Machine Shop. And so I was told that max of 5 slides, so I got whopping 4 slides for you. So I'm just going to talk about who we are, what do we do, why do we do what we do, and then tie it back to the qualitative analysis that we're really here for. So we are a precision CNC machine shop, and the button is not working. Anyways, so we were started in 1988. We do 4-axis turning, 5-axis milling, engineering, design for manufacturability, and metrology. Ken, the owner of our company, founded it back in '88 with a single manual lathe, purchased his first CNC machine back in 1990, and I actually grew up with the family business. Since '95, the business was actually in the basement of the house. So it was a really unique opportunity for me to grow up with the business. So what happened is back in 2016, we had 1 employee. We're a very small company. Biggest customer was a Fortune 500, all high quality, top tier work. And Ken and Sandra, the owners, had a vision for a nonprofit organization. And the idea is that we're all struggling for people, the workforce development. There's a lack. And there we go. So the idea is we want to so we've been developing a nonprofit, and the idea is to take individuals that are, let's just say in inner city, that are getting mentored for the first time, because we're all where we're at today because we had somebody, a parent, a scoutmaster, a teacher, and a lot of these individuals don't have that. And so what we are working on doing is there's a lot of great organizations that are investing in these at-risk youth or young adults, but when they leave the 4 walls of these nonprofits, where do they go? Economically, they have no skills, they've got no education, they go back to their old environment, and they regress to where they were before. So what we're doing is we're developing our business to be larger so that we can take these individuals on and train them in a trade skill while using the nonprofit to mentor them in their personal life, family life, community life, and spiritual life. So now we're able to develop wholesome individuals from a population that historically we have not been able to recruit from as an industry. So now that the slideshows are working here, so we picked up our first 5-axis mill back in October of 2016. And at the beginning, we had 1 employee. Currently, we're up to 12 people now. And so 2017, that was a 75% sales growth. This year, we're looking at 40 to 60%. So really, the purpose of a company really defines who you are. It's not just what you do, but it's how you do it, because how you do it really comes from your purpose. The first one is obvious, customers. Why do we do what we do? It's for our customers. It's the on-time delivery, it's the quality, it's the service. The middle one, I think, is one that gets overlooked a little bit. We're the HR winner for the year, and livelihood really comes down to livelihood for the owners, livelihood for the employees. It's not just the profitability, it's not just paying well, but it's creating a work environment where people can live and be happy. We spend how many hours a day at work? How many hours a week at work? What percentage of our lives do we spend at work, right? And so we have not had a challenge recruiting. We have had more talent than we know what to do with. And why are we developing Shiloh? Because we know that that's going to run out to where we want to go down the road with the size that we want to be, right? And one of the reasons that we haven't had a challenge recruiting and why I get to be so selective with the people we hire is because of our work environment. People come to work and they're happy, they're smiling. We have one vendor that came in, he's like, I like coming here because people always have a smile on their face. I don't get that everywhere I go. So one of my purposes in my job is to make sure that I'm making my employees happy. And when they're happy, they work hard. A study out of Berkeley said that a motivated employee is 37% more productive. What could you do with 37% more productivity in your shop? they're also 3 times more creative, right? If you're in a job shop setting, how much creativity do you need to figure out that fixturing? We're doing 5-axis milling. How much creativity do you need just to figure out how to work hold that and how to manage that? And so we've seen an incredible impact in their personal lives, and because then it flows right back into their work life. One of the guys we picked up, he was working 65 hours a week at another shop, never saw his kids, right? What is he like on a daily basis at work then, right? So by focusing on our employees, it comes right back to us as a company. The third thing is community. Talking about the nonprofit, obviously community is a big focus for us. Why? Because I live in the city. I'm part of that community. I want my company to be more than just, hey, we made jobs, right? So we actually donate 50% of our profit. In 2013, Ken and Sandra were talking to another Christian-owned business that was donating 50% of their profit. It was a local welding shop in town, and they're like, why don't we do that? You know, what are they gonna do? Get a bigger truck, get a bigger pond? And so what we're doing is we're really focusing on developing the community. And what that looks like is, it's the nonprofit that I'm talking about. It's the donating. It's the picture that I have up right here was from a STEM day for the STEM Scouts. It's a pilot program through the Boy Scouts of America. And what it was is it's really focusing on science, technology, engineering, and math. We're having a hard time recruiting as an industry, right? When we went in, out of those 27 kids, every single one of them knew about 3D printing. 2 knew about machining. By 6th grade, they're making career choices. So they don't know about us, but yet they're starting to make career choices. That's why we can't hire people, because they don't know about us. So what we did is we went in and we shared 3D printing with them. We had a printer right there. We machined out treasure chest boxes. And we stuck a GoPro on the 5-axis, machined out the box, right? Gave these kids these boxes and said, here, I'll show you how to tap it by hand. We got a tapping block. And these kids loved it. They tapped these blocks by hand, screwed on the lids, had a treasure chest. One of the things that astounded me is with the engraving, because it said STEM Scouts 2018 on the front and then Honoree Industries on the back. The kids loved polishing it with Scotch-Brite. That astounded me. One of the girls was like, can I take a bunch home? I've never seen this before. You know, the boys are having competitions, right? And when you put these parts, and we actually had a 3D model of the UMC 750 on it, and you know, you put this model in their hands, like this is an 18,000-pound machine that makes rocket ship parts that made your box. And they had a video of it. And we were able to tie together some of the math labs that they do in school, and it changed their perspective. And now they're all excited about 3D printing, and now machining is right up there with 3D printing, because they all know about it, right? And I guarantee you at least one of those kids is now gonna go into the industry, right? We have to change the perspective of the younger people, because we have a marketing problem. We have a marketing problem in hiring, and we have to address that at a more fundamental level. So it can't just be at the high school level. We gotta get it sooner. All right, so we're here for really trying to figure out what makes a great shop, and you know, we're really digging into a lot of great qualitative data through Modern Machine Shop. It's a really unique product that really doesn't exist anywhere else in our industry right now. And really, it comes down to two different categories. There's the internal qualitative and then the external. And kind of got to talk about both because they complement each other and fill in holes where the other doesn't have. So in terms of really improving one's company, you know, we talk about getting an ERP system, sitting down, collecting data, analyzing, like those 8 jobs you're talking about. These ones are making me money, these ones aren't. Turns out it was swapped, right? You got to get visibility and data on your shop floor, right? If I have 2 different cells, I could put the same job on 2 different cells, benchmark them, figure out which one's working better, figure out why one's working better, compare it, make better decision making, right? And I can analyze that with our ERP, which is RealTrack, okay? But if I want to benchmark my company, how do you do that? How many of us have 2 machine shops lying around? We don't have that, right? So what we're able to do then is use Modern Machine Shop to really benchmark our company against other companies, right? It's like driving a car, right? internally, you need lights on in the car so you can actually press buttons at night. Externally, you got to have headlights to actually see where you are in the race, so to speak. And really implementing the ERP, getting data has been fantastic internally, but this has been a great way for us to take a more even global perspective using Modern Machine Shop. So we were very excited to be here with you all to really explore, what makes the top 20% of shops, and for how all of us, it's not just how do you get to be the top 20%, but how do we move the whole industry forward. So we definitely appreciate Modern Machine Shop for really pulling this all together. You probably want this back.
Thank you. Who doesn't love polishing with Scotch-Brite? So we're just about to open it up for the audience question. Just to get you guys talking, I'd like to throw out a general question of my own. Maybe have each of you answer it. Just what is a challenge your shop faces right now? What is a constraint or an impediment to further growth, further effectiveness, further advance in the direction of the aims you have? And what are you doing to face or overcome that challenge? Jerry, we'll start with you.
I would say hiring needs. One of our biggest challenges, it's hard to find skilled people. So to find skilled people in the pipeline, what we're trying to do is to target young people and offer apprenticeship programs and opportunities for training.
Thanks.
Peter?
So we're a high-mix, low-volume manufacturer with a lot of setups. And a couple years ago, we invested in a multi-pallet system intended to help us reduce the amount of time we had to dedicate to setups. And what we have found is that we're struggling to integrate the way that system schedules work with our ERP. Our ERP is kind of a master or parent system. We want one source of truth. We want to know, to interact at a detailed level. And so because the provider didn't necessarily offer an integrated solution, we ended up creating some custom processes where we take exported XML information, we sort of scan it, and then pipe that back into our ERP. And I think the challenge for us is, through that experience, trying to define what our IT department will look like in the future. What kind of skills might we not have today that are going to become increasingly important?
There's definitely a long list of things that I could say are a challenge and are the reason that I'm getting gray hairs at such a young age. But I think, like most of the others of us in this industry, I would have to say that finding talent is definitely the biggest challenge that we face. And for us, we're finding that you gotta kind of come up with ways to teach what you have, teach the people that you have the knowledge that they need to succeed. And you also have to look at how to attract talent that you might not have considered, guys driving from farther away to your shop to work, whether, some of the stuff that Kylene mentioned was, kind of very interesting to me, the programs that they have in place for their employees, different benefits and such. So that's the real way that we're trying to address that the best we can.
So one of the challenges for us, it's a happy challenge. So we've been a very small shop, but we're growing very rapidly. In 2 years, we've gone up 300% in personnel. And if you continue that trajectory, one of the challenges, of course, is how do you continue to grow and minimize those growing pains? Because we take a very long-term strategic planning approach. We don't want to plan for just the next 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, but we got to look even longer. Where do we want to actually be? And how do we get there in a way that is most efficient? And how you do things as a small shop naturally is not scalable, right? So what we've been doing over the last, especially year and a half, is figuring out how to make our processes more scalable. One of the ways is implementing an ERP. We got to get that traceability, really create the processes that are controlled. It's not easy to make scalable processes. And one of the things that we've been doing to address that too is bringing on a shop floor manager actually in 4 days. It's a happy problem to have, but any problem that you have, if you can turn it into an opportunity, that's what you want. And I think we've been taking that in stride.
Are there any audience questions? All right, a hand shot up here. You can try shouting it out. You can go to the microphone. What would you like? All right. To repeat the question, guys, which ERP system do you use? How long have you used it? How many different systems did you consider before you chose that one?
Yeah, as far as I know, we don't do that, so.
Easy enough. Peter?
We use Infor Cloud Suite Industrial, which is the successor to Sightline. We've used it for about 20 years, and so it's gone through multiple releases. That selection was frankly before my time, but I can tell you, because I know our company, we like to do our homework, and when we make decisions, we know exactly what we're getting. Our goal was to have one source of truth, and for that ERP to enable growth for years to come.
For us, we don't actually have a specific ERP system, but that is something that I'm really looking into, especially at this show. But we just use a couple systems blended together with a bunch of spreadsheets that works pretty well for us. So
we use RealTrack. They're actually one of the sponsors by coincidence. And we bought it in 2016. I looked at about 8 different ERPs. I tend to be a little over thorough on things, and what my points of analysis were for it, because I'm assuming you're going through that process right now, is we're a job shop, so we do low volume, aerospace, defense, energy. We're actually between 2 facilities right now. So that's kind of what our situation is. I'm not sure what yours is. And what we're looking for is a system that was designed for machine shops, and because there's a lot of systems out there, and they tend to be for different niches or different industries. And one of the things that I absolutely needed is a way to capture the actual shop floor. Right? There's a lot that focus more on the accounting side. But what we wanted is a system that is quick and easy for the operator to clock their operation, clock when they're done. Because especially doing, a job shop work, one job might take an hour, it might take 80 hours, right? And so constantly clocking in and out, how much time do you waste, right? If you waste 10 minutes a day, that's an entire work day by the end of the year. It's an incredible amount of time, right? So it had to be fast and efficient. The next thing is that it needed to be not just analysis tomorrow, but I needed analysis today, right? So I needed to have visibility of the shop floor with the ERP, right? So I can look at the ERP and see what everybody's doing, where everything's at, if things are on schedule, if things are on time right now. Because I don't need to know how I did today tomorrow, right? The third thing is there's a lot of systems are too complex, and when they become too complex, they become not so useful, right? And what we discovered with the system that we purchased is that it was everything we needed without the additional complexity. And trying to find that right balance is very difficult to find. Does that answer your question, or is there anything more you'd like to know? Okay.
What a great question. Met a shop owner at the show today, a friend for a long time. His shop is just got a new owner, and that's his fear, that they're going to make him adopt their ERP system. He feels like implementing just the right ERP system is a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and he doesn't want to do it again in his lifetime. It defines the way your shop thinks about its work. Any other questions? This gentleman.
Thank you all for participating and sharing your thoughts with the group this morning. Most all of you mentioned something about employee training and the lack of skill sets, and I think Baker Industries, you mentioned an apprenticeship program. Do any of the other companies have apprenticeship programs? I guess this may be directed more towards you than Jerry. Is your apprenticeship program, is it a certified apprenticeship program by the U.S. government, or is it just one that you're calling in-house apprenticeship? Because I've heard apprenticeship used a lot here in the past year or so in industry, but also education. And if you look on US.gov, apprenticeship programs seem to be a little bit more specific, where at the end of that program, that trainee will have something tangible in hand that in a sense could be equivalent to some type of certificate or some type of degree. So I was just very curious about your company's approach and if you've done any studying on that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. No, our apprenticeship program and training isn't necessarily certified. It's just something we do internally to just try to get people in and to get them to understand about manufacturing. So much of it in the last 20 years has left the States. A lot of high schools used to do a lot of shop training and whatnot. A lot of that's gone. So to try to get that back, we're offering that a lot to the young guys, young people that are applying, even for general labor positions, or even people that we have in our plant, trying to bring them up through the ranks and get them into specific departments and train them for on the job site.
Any other questions? This man back here. Oh yeah, I pointed to two people at the same time. Why don't the guy closer to me, and then we'll take you next, sir.
Hi guys, GD&T, okay? How about, do you find that everybody, so you guys are taking jobs in and quoting them, and does everybody think of GD&T the same way? Does everybody, my experience is internally everybody interprets it differently. So I can imagine outside work coming in, how do you interpret that and get their intent, their design intent? I've been in one place for 36 years, and this program, I'm getting a lot out of it after just the first couple hours. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Being able to see how industry is doing this and the data that you guys are mining from all the cross-country shops is very, very informative.
Thank you. Thank you. So the gentleman asked a question about GD&T. Did anybody want to jump on that? The challenge of interpreting customers' design intent, how you face that challenge, and how that's playing out for you. Jerry?
Yeah, that's a good one. A lot of GD&T we see a lot. I'm actually shocked on how it looks. I know a lot of the GD&T's drawings are done out of the States and brought in. A lot of it falls under general guidelines, but don't necessarily represent the actual part and the geometries that they are, for how it's designed. So we interpret it on how it's drawn, and then a lot of times we spend a lot of time on the quality end in our industry, in our job. So developing gauges and quality inspection, GD&T is pretty much cornerstone. So I'll actually work with the customers a lot of times to try to rewrite the GD&T, something that'll help, make it a little bit more user-friendly, and to kind of get them to understand proper tolerancing and datums.
Any other thoughts on GD&T, tolerancing, Peter?
I would second what Jerry said about working with customers. I think GD&T is not trained enough for young engineers in school. You know, our quoting process relies on kind of under-promising and over-delivering. So if we're not comfortable with it, we have to engage with the customer. And I would just sort of share that I think that's an industry-wide concern. Certainly something we're interested in working with both customers and our own team to improve.
I would definitely agree and echo that. I think the big cornerstone for that is just having a very tight, close relationship with your customer. You know, they can get a hold of you within 5 minutes, you can get a hold of them within 5 minutes. You have a question, you talk, you work it out real quick and easy. It doesn't hurt the production flow, it doesn't hurt the process and time. It just keeps things working smooth and efficiently if there is a question.
I would echo all three responses, and I think that communication is a key component that sometimes it seems like coming from a younger person that I think that the new generation of emailing and all that, you miss out on that communication. Sometimes a quick phone call can really go far or a long way.
There was a man who you, sir? The question to Jerry at Baker Industries, which has diversified pretty extensively into additive manufacturing along with machining. The question was the use of the 3D printing capability. Is it just for work holding and other internal tooling, or is it to a large extent for external customer parts?
Yeah, both, definitely. We use it quite a bit internally. Matter of fact, when we first got our machines, it was one of the first things we did was to basically use it as just another tool for us internally to make different holding jigs, different types of components, clamp feet, and different items to try to hold the workpiece during machining time. And also with our own inspection equipment, quite a bit. A lot of the stuff that we print stays inside Baker, and we don't, we use it for our own use on top of, obviously doing a service bureau, helping out the customers do the same.
Thank you.
Right now, we're going through an evaluation process for work holding. So we do 5-axis machining. So on the slide, there's like a picture of a Beethoven that we machined out. So if we want to machine the backside of that part, traditionally we've had to machine out, the jaws of the vices, and then to actually hold that odd 5-axis shaped part. So we've been looking at some resin 3D printers that are very strong and durable in the additive manufacturing section, and scope them out beforehand. They ship you samples. You can actually take the part, throw it in coolant, see what the resin does in coolant, and it really saves on your custom work holding fixturing times. I think we're looking at that to be a great solution.
Other questions?
Hi. Good morning. Bill Berrien with Pindell Global Precision. A little bit of a micro question on the people side. Millennials like flexibility. They like time off, elements like that. And so I'm just curious what your absentee policies are and how you handle or accommodate and any evolution over there in that policy over time. Just be curious. Thanks.
Great question. So I'm gonna answer that question twofold. One, I think you're definitely right about that stereotype, and then two, it's also more person specific. So the first being, we function very decentralized, and I think a lot of millennials gravitate towards that because instead of going from top down, you're simply equipping, enabling them to do their job, which so even if you gave them an 8-hour time slot, they still feel more flexibility. So it's not just flexibility in when you get to work, it's flexibility during that time slot. So there isn't that micromanaging. And so if we're running, right now we're only running about 1.5 shifts. So we're working right now on adding our second shift. So we give each guys their jobs, and it's up to them to get it done. And it's not us telling you need to work from this time to this time to get it done. If they get it done good and on time, that's what matters. So we're simply equipping them to do their job. The second thing is each individual tends to care about a different type of flexibility. Some like that hourly flexibility. Some like just that ability to just be equipped and not be micromanaged. So I think you're right about the stereotype. It's also more on an individual basis, and it's just learning your employees. In terms of absences, we've been fortunate to have a great set of employees that the absences just don't happen. When they want to take time off, we fight to make sure that they get that time off, because we're there for them, and because we're there for them, they're there for us, right? Employee loyalty starts with employer loyalty. And so when we're loyal to them first, they show up.
Any other thoughts about personnel flexibility, absentee policy, Peter?
Sure. Oh, go ahead.
I think to kind of echo what he's saying and what I just had mentioned before, again, it's a big thing to communicate, because for me, I guess I'm technically a millennial as well, and my mentality is different from some of the similarly aged employees in our shop. So you need to communicate with them as to, what they're looking for in the job. Are they there just to kind of make a little bit of money, and they don't want to, they don't care about working more, or, what do they want? And then you kind of have to be adaptable to what they're looking for within reasonable terms.
We define a PTO policy. We ask our cell leads and supervisors to manage who's gone at any one time. We ask everybody to submit with 7 days advance notice. We do not have a sick day policy. If somebody's genuinely sick, they might just make everybody else sick. If we watch it, and if somebody's taking advantage of it, I would consider that kind of an honesty issue, possibly a passion issue. Ultimately, I also think that as much as people talk about flexibility, people also want to know that they're pulling their weight on a team. And I think people can flourish with some shared accountability for getting the job done.
Well said. Do you have a thought, Jerry?
Yeah, we, same as what Peter just talked about, accountability is critical, especially in manufacturing. So to try to, the managers have their own right to their departments to write up individuals that take advantage or take time off or don't show up for work. Baker definitely doesn't tolerate it, so there's a write-up procedure that we have in place with HR, and HR individuals, and everybody signs it. The individual understands what they did wrong. They're reprimanded pretty good. And then, as far as taking time off, again, if they earn the time off for vacation time and whatnot, that's fine. Anything else in between that time, they have to submit 30 days ahead of schedule or ahead of time for required time off. Sick days and things like that are fine, but there again, especially with considering with the millennials, the managers actually kind of can kind of feel out each individual and kind of treat those cases as they come up. There again, we work 2 12-hour shifts, 6 to 7 days a week. So if you start seeing a pattern of that, then it shows up pretty quick. Who's able to cut it and who's going to last.
One of the real positives I've seen with the youngest generation of adults, the millennials, a whole lot of them don't know they're not supposed to like manufacturing. I'm Gen X. I was the generation we got indoctrinated against manufacturing, and some of these younger people just love making parts and don't carry that baggage to it, which I think is one of the healthiest and most promising things we have on the horizon. Any other questions? So again, I'm pointing parallel at two people. The man wearing the blazer right there. Yeah. Economics, political question. So to repeat the question, the gentleman asked about steel import duties, steel and aluminum, the political situation we're going right now. Is that having a tangible effect on your businesses?
I think everyone's feeling that. A lot of our 1018 steel comes out of Czech Republic. A lot of our metal comes from overseas, so we're seeing price increases on that. A lot of our work is low volume, which means you take a lot of time to program, a lot of time to set up, then you run it. So we don't have as high of a material cost as maybe a higher volume shop, where a bigger percent of it is material. But I think the key factor for us is because of the relationship that we have with our customers, we're finally sitting down with them and saying, hey, we haven't had a price increase in this incredible amount of long time, especially with the steel. We got to sit down and talk. And the answer from the Fortune 500 was, oh, okay, yeah, we can do that. That's not a problem. And so it's just, when you have everything else behind your business set up well, it makes little challenges like that pop up just easier to overcome. Just all the success around the business is synergistic together.
For us, we're more of a production shop, so the increase in material costs across the board have definitely impacted us. Couple of things we're doing to address that and deal with that is a lot of transparency, more than I previously would have been comfortable with, but showing kind of, here's what we paid 2 years ago, here's what we're looking at now. And the other thing is looking at ways to, maybe find solution to cut that cost, that per part cost, down to what it was before. Blanket orders, doubling the quantity or getting it, something like that, where we can, match off the increase in material costs by decreasing setup time or amortizing that setup time amongst a lot more parts. Trying to find a solution, because that's definitely a focus for our customers, is that they can't just see the kind of increase in cost per part that we're seeing for materials. So trying to give them options is a big thing for us. Again, communication. Transparency.
We're all watching the same news.
Yeah,
so there is
they
that opportunity.
seem to really know what's going on. I mean, when you talk to them, it's not like you're not. They're not. They understand. They know what's going on, so they're not surprised by it, but at the same time, they've got their customers they have to answer to, so.
Any other thoughts?
Boy, I think communicating with customers and getting creative on changing processes are two really good inputs that apply to us. We, I would say, have some confidence that this is not going to be a long-term issue, that there will be a settling process, and that we're in kind of a short-term situation.
Yeah, exactly what Peter just said. I was thinking about, we're not production shop. We're definitely one-off specialty tooling. So our prices fluctuate from job to job all the time anyways. Yeah, our material costs have gone up a little bit, so that just reflected in our quoting. But there again, it's a limited bubble I think we're in. Just until the U.S. manufacturers are ramping up their manufacturing as they are now, I think then we're going to start seeing the price of that start to steadily decline a little bit.
There was a man back here, sir.
So my question is, how much time do you spend working on the company instead of working in the company? Because as a leadership, it's a constant battle, at least for me. So that's one of the questions. Do you try to have a certain amount of time that you allot to that every day or week or month? Where's your balance?
I wish it was as easy as having set schedules of times, because that would be great. But we all know business just constantly throws stuff at you. So my official title is Vice President of Marketing Development, which means a lot of my job is focusing on the company and not necessarily within the company. So I'm also touching HR, the strategic planning. So a big part of it is really how do we develop the company more. But trying to find that balance is always difficult because sometimes that takes a back seat to the stuff that has to happen today. And I think the big thing is just getting the right people around you that you're able to balance that with them. Really getting yourself the right team of people.
If I had to actually come up with an hour total of a per week that this is what time I spend, on this or that, I never could. I spend a lot of time at the shop, and I also have about a half-hour commute every day. And for me, I feel like the working on the company a lot of times gets done as a multitask while I'm working in the company. You walk around and you see something and you think, boy, I saw this in Modern Machine Shop a few weeks ago. Maybe we could apply it here. And you make a little mental note, and you get back and you're sitting there eating your lunch, and it's like, hey, I was gonna look into this, and you kind of get on Google and you say, I think we should make a change here. So for me, that's a lot of the time that I spend working on the company, besides just the general week or day in and day out time.
I would say, I enjoy creating a standard work process for myself, and looking at that. It kind of only takes one good idea in some respect. Those are high leverage activities. I've thought about my role in kind of 4 different categories or hats: strategist, catalyst, steward, and operator. I'm not the author of that, but strategist and catalyst roles are sort of working on the business. Steward and operator roles are about efficiency. And I think that's worked really well. The other thing that I would encourage all of us to consider is whether our organizations have a systemic under-delegation problem. We've invested the last few months in some supervisor leadership training. It's been a game changer. People don't delegate because they think they don't want to train. They think they're a bit faster at doing it themselves. They're comfortable doing it because they know they're good at it, and they're uncomfortable learning something that's new and taking on additional responsibilities. So it's really kind of moved our cheese in a way to have our supervisors undergo this leadership training, but it's been really positive. It frees up some time for that.
Jerry, your time?
I'm kind of fortunate. The size of Baker, the Baker family pretty much runs the company. So even though I'm involved a little bit with the business development end and certain departments, as far as the company goes, that's something I don't have to actually get into myself.
Another question?
Specifically, what methods, what softwares, and what you do for personnel as far as trainers in your organization.
So that question touched a lot, but he's asking about the resources and logistics of training, recognizing that manufacturers largely need to train internally now, and to some extent, no doubt, each of your businesses is doing this. What resources are you using for training, and how do you provide for trainers? Somebody who's doing training in your shop isn't doing something else, so how do you allocate that time? So I guess trainers and training tools and resources. What do you use? How do you do it?
That's a great question. What we usually do, it's usually lower key. The department heads handle the training. So we don't actually have specific people as trainers per se. When we hire someone that, or bring someone up through the company that hasn't had that experience and needs training, he gets on-the-job training. So the software, again, it depends on, like if he's in the design, and he's going to be trained on that design software for that department. If he's in the machining area, then it's a machine tool leader that's going to be training him. So it's all on the job site. Again, if it's design or engineering, then Baker does actually offer assistance to helping pay for education. So if they go to night school, to go to school and learn some software and get some education, like GD&T courses and things like that. And then when they're at work, it's on the job training with real work. So that's how we handle that.
Boy, that's an exciting topic with a lot to it. I'll just see if I can answer your questions. We have a salaried training and development manager that we hired in 2017. We went through a system selection of 20 different software programs and decided we wanted to go with Litmos. We recently moved to Office 365 as a side note, and we've thought about transitioning to SharePoint to save a little. We have a lot of on-the-job training, and that covers any process that's not already been clarified and documented and systematized. We set a goal this quarter for all of our team members to either teach or learn 10 hours or for 10 hours as an initial way of understanding a little bit more about what OJT was happening. We also have one of our most experienced machinists in our tool room that's taking young machinists under his wing, and he can hold a tighter tolerance on some of those manual machines than the Lamborghinis we like to buy, or that we try to. And so that's been a really nice way of celebrating the legacy of our industry and helping them understand some fundamentals. That's what we do.
For us, most of the training that we do is on the job, kind of an as-needed basis. We do use some third party for basic safety, or the basic training as, to start out in the shop, and then a bunch of the safety and that kind of stuff. We use third party. One of the things that I found as we went through our transition to ISO 9001:2015 was the area in there about organizational knowledge, and kind of as I looked into what we needed to do to meet that, I started to realize how much tribal knowledge we had that, well, so-and-so knows how to do this, so, if that happens, you go get him. And it's those types of things that when you get them on paper, all of a sudden it's a lot easier to make sure that you have that, and then you realize, hey, maybe someone else should know how to do this, and at that point in time, you pass that, you kind of get that training done at that time.
That's a great question. It's a fun question that we've been working on because we've been a small shop for a lot of years, so we don't have that history of constantly bringing on new people. So it's something that we are still working on ourselves. So until we get our nonprofit, the Shiloh-bound program, up and running, which will be more formal, what we're doing right now is more informal. So we've been hiring pretty much only people that already have training or skill or ability. They already know how to program a CNC machine. Every single one of our machinists are actually programmers because we're creating a foundation for the future. So when we get these individuals, at first it was just kind of more of a throw them in and sink or swim, and they learn how to swim in our environment. So for us it was just a continuous improvement of, okay, what did we do? How can we do better? Get feedback, work with them on a personal basis. This is what we'll teach you this, you teach us that. Because it's really just a mutual journey between us and everybody on the floor, right? And so really what we do now is, you work with them to figure out what do they know? What are they good at? What can they do? Have them job shadow somebody for an entire, let's just say, week. where they're just following them around. They're watching them program. They're watching how they function, what they do, what the processes are. Because you can tell somebody what your processes are, but it's totally different than actually walking through those processes. So it's very much so on the job. And then once they start to get familiar, like with our CAM programs and our processes and our machines, then you get them a simple job. And that job is going to be probably simpler, below their ability from what they were doing prior, right? But it allows us to gauge where they're at and then continue to allow them to work up. We'll use more formal training, such as actually sending them to one of our vendors for training, like for Power Mill. They've been fantastic for working with us in getting people trained. So I think the big takeaway though is that it's just when everybody has the attitude of let's just continue improving, let's just keep making this better, let's just keep talking of what we can do to improve, it just creates an environment of let's always make it better every day.
We have time for at least one more, maybe two, ma'am. How many of you already have a written continuity plan and a risk assessment completed?
So we've been working on our AS9100 and ISO 9001 certification for a while, and especially the AS9100, the whole risk management is part of that. And whether we realize it or not, how we function on a day-to-day basis has an element of risk management to it. But it's important to identify that's what that you're already doing it. And once you identify that you're doing it, now you can identify other elements that are industry standard of how to tack that onto it. And then part of, really, because right now, we could have been AS9100 certified a while ago, right? But we would have been certified to processes that were not scalable. Risk management that may not have been scalable, right? So it's timing, and so for us, it's still in the process of being written down, and so we're going through that process right now.
We are ISO 9000 certified, so with the new transition, we do have a risk assessment plan in place, and I was really amazed at how many things that we came up with as we went through that process that really could be impactful on our company. That even some stuff that maybe I had thought of it before, maybe someone we had discussed on just a verbal basis, but to write that down and get that kind of address that, look at that need and address it, it was a big thing for us.
I do want to throw one more thing in there, and that sometimes, like with the certifications, it becomes so convoluted where it's like, this is risk management over here, and I'll think about it when I have to think about it. But it really needs to be something that you think about on a day-to-day basis. How are you going to make your business sustainable in the future? That's really what risk management is. How do we make it sustainable 20 years from now? What about 50 years from now? Because we got employees, we have 0% turnover. So the employees that we have 30 years from now, what's the company going to look like then, right? They have a stake in this. And so on our day-to-day decision-making, management, it's about that long-term sustainability. How much debt do you have? We're not leveraged. We're not in a position where we'll be, where we're threatened. So when you're buying tooling, what's the risk of this vendor versus this Chinese vendor versus this reputable one versus one that you have no clue about, right? You're always making that decision making of how is this going to impact my business today, and what's that going to do for my sustainability? And it's not this convoluted, I need to go do risk management and this, the corporate execs go do that. It needs to be permeated throughout the whole business, where even the machinist thinks about the sustainability of their machine, of their work cell area. And it really needs to be throughout the whole company culture.
I would just quickly say, your first question was around continuity planning. We have annual career conversations that help us put people, kind of move them towards developing their gifts and abilities. That really has fueled our continuity and succession planning program. On risk management, the tool that we use is called QuickBase, It's not specific to risk, but it allows you to build databases on the fly. We have a living document that not only helps with our ISO certification, but anybody can add a risk. Our leadership team then reviews that. This year, we picked several what we call single points of failure in our production process, and we've just been going through a lot of ideas about how to address that, which of course our customers appreciate. So that's what we do.
So we can squeeze in one more question. Sir.
Just to backtrack on training, if you have a highly skilled individual that's been kind of working in a silo, in other words, you've been an individual contributor, would you like to leverage that person's skill to help train others? Do y'all run into that much?
Question is, you've got a high skill employee, you'd like to use him for training. Do you run into that situation, and how do you accommodate that situation?
So for right now, we're a small company, so it's pretty easy because we're all in proximity with each other. So it's easy for that knowledge to just naturally transfer. Instead of just throwing them into the company or classroom training, that job shadowing, you basically pick the right skilled person for that person to job shadow. So if this person is going to go, focus more on, 4-axis machining, they're going to go work with this person on HSM. If this person's going to be more complicated parts, this person's going to job shadow the person who's programming power mill, the really complicated stuff. So really, that person, that employee, that is the one doing like the one who's being job shadowed, that person is really trained to then train that person, so that you pick a person for that knowledge transfer, which means really any employee could be picked for that knowledge transfer. It really just depends on, you have to make sure that they know how to transfer that knowledge. So you got to train the trainers, and really, we're a very decentralized company, so it's really just about enabling the right people to just kind of do their job. It sounds simple, but so many times we make things complicated.
I think kind of the thought that you might have had in mind when you asked that question is, if you have a highly skilled employee, how do you get them to train someone without thinking that that person that they're training is going to be a threat to them? And again, I think you have to have that communication there that, as to why you're thinking of why you want this other person trained, and make sure that that highly skilled employee knows, hey, I see you as a big part of this in the future, but I want to double that ability and have someone else that's right there alongside of you and also can make your life easier. And when you get that communication across, then all of a sudden that breaks down that barrier, I think.
And I think the other big thing too is the self-training, where our company has a vision. We're not just there for the money. We have a technological vision, we have a social vision. So now these individuals, they're not just there for the money. They grasp on the mission and vision, and then they start to gravitate towards a technological vision, because we're very progressive with our technology. So then the individuals, we work with them to say, where do you fit in with these different technologies that we're going towards? And then the individuals, they take the initiative to say, okay, I'm going to work on learning this. And you can teach someone, but you really got to motivate them and enable them to be motivated to simply, for themselves to go and pursue that technology.
Peter or Jerry, anything to add about high-skilled internal trainers?
I would say that some people are good at training, some people aren't. So it's really beneficial for us to have a multifaceted approach for the subject matter experts. We've had good luck with our training platform, documenting what they know, maybe some GoPro videos, online that others can watch. For those that enjoy coming alongside other machinists, then we try to schedule that as well. But we have not found a one-size-fits-all works best. We tend to work with the expert in that matter and sort of figure out how best to carry on that knowledge.
Real quick, the other point I wanted to point out is there's definitely different levels of training. So we will use different personnel, experienced machinists or designers, or metrology personnel, depending on the level of the individual being trained. So he'll may go through and shadow or work with multiple people throughout his training course. And it could go on for years, depending on how well he picks it up. But he'll actually end up going through like a beginning stage with one individual, and before he actually gets to someone that we've had in our company for 20 years that's operating, some of the most sophisticated machines. Someone's not going to be trained by that person until they're there for a few years at least.